Hi, this is Suzie Ungerleider and you are listening to Herms Promi Corner.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe von Herms Promi Corner. Ich freue mich sehr, diesmal ein Gespräch nach Kanada führen zu dürfen via Zoom. Auf der anderen Seite ist nämlich Suzie Ungerleider. Sie hat ein ganz tolles Album herausgebracht und darüber werden wir jetzt in Englisch mit ihr sprechen. Ich sage euch zuvor, es ist 9 Uhr morgens auf der anderen Seite des Atlantiks, während ich hier jetzt um 18 Uhr abends sitze. Also von daher bin ich dankbar dafür, dass sie so früh aufgestanden ist. Hello, Suzie. Welcome to my show. It's now 9 in the morning where you are in Vancouver and 6 in the evening here in Germany. It's great that you are taking the time to talk to me so early in the morning. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thanks so much. It's not so early. I feel kind of lazy, actually.
Suzie, before we talk about your last album, Among the Evergreens, I'd like to turn back the clock. How did you get into music? Are you part of a musical family?
That's a very good question. Folks, my parents, I would say they are musical, but they aren't trained musically. My mother actually, correction, my mother did take clarinet lessons, a little bit of piano, but the thing that they were, and they still are, huge music fans. They're the kind of parents who hear something, a piece of speech, like a word, and it makes them think of a song and they start singing about it. You know, it makes them think of, oh, there's a beautiful moon. Let's sing Paper Moon. Things like that. And so it's pretty funny because that just seems normal to me. And now I do it to my own child. And I think, I wonder if other families do the same thing. I think some do, but some don't.
How did you get into music? Can you remember your first composition, your first lyrics?
I think, yeah, when I was about 8 or 9, I was really into rock and roll. So I thought I'll write a blues song, and I wrote a song about a train, being a train. That was the first song I wrote, but I didn't really do a lot after. I think after that, I got really into the Rolling Stones, all their shenanigans with drug busts and all the, I read this book called Up and Down with the Rolling Stones, written by their road manager. And so then after that, I wrote a song about getting busted by the police, even though I had never really tried drugs or anything like that. And then I didn't write songs for many years after that. I started again when I was in my 20s.
What's the special about Vancouver for you?
Well, I got here because I came here as a baby with my mom and dad and my sister. My father, who's an academic, he got a job at the university here, and he was born in New York and lived in Florida and moved to California, met my mother, and then was studying in Massachusetts. That's where I was born. And so he got this job here. And I think my parents thought, well, we'll just be there a couple of years. It was during, Vietnam War was raging, and they weren't necessarily draft dodgers, but they wanted to maybe get a bit of an escape from that time, from the war and the politics of the time in the United States. That's not to say that they wanted to shelter and get away from that, but I think they, it provided kind of a safe haven for my parents. And my dad didn't get drafted, probably because he was married and he had 2 kids and he had a professional job. So we ended up in Vancouver. And at the time, it was really a place that wasn't very known by many people in the world. I think it was just this little special, weird logging town. And as a kid, I didn't really see the beauty of it. It's on the ocean, there are mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. But as a kid, it was just normal. It was the air I was breathing. So I was like, oh man, my parents, they're from New York and California. I wish I was there because that's way more exciting. That's where all the music and art and everything, culture was happening. And it just seemed way more cool. And so as a kid, I was really like, I'm not really from here. Which isn't true at all. Because as I grew up, I realized I am completely from that place and it's in my blood and the salt water's in my veins. So, as a kid, I think you're trying to rebel and find something new. And then as you get older, you realize that how much you are a product of where you grew up.
Then let's turn to your music. Do you have any rituals, for example, 20 minutes before a performance?
I think what happens is my brain just kind of clicks into this zone of a little bit meditative. I don't really do it consciously. It just happens. In fact, it's funny because My husband, who plays drums sometimes with me, he'll look at me and he'll start talking to me and he goes, "Oh, you're not hearing anything I'm saying." I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I stopped kind of being able to, and I don't really want to take in what I'm hearing and seeing right before the show. I'm kind of getting into a zone. I do a little bit of vocal warm up and I think a lot about the stories I want to tell and the songs and what they evoke. I like to have a cup of herbal tea. That helps.
When you go on stage, how important is the contact with the audience to you?
Oh my God, so important. You can really just feel the room sometimes. I play a lot of very intimate shows, and I think that's the best. I mean, it's fun to play a huge room, but when it's really small and you feel like every reaction is feeding what you're doing, and what you're doing is feeding what the audience is doing. And it doesn't feel like anonymous or anything. It feels very specific to that moment.
Then let's talk about a new album. How did you feel when the album Among Evergreens was released? In your stomach, for example.
I was excited. It's a funny thing because you work on something for a long time and then suddenly it's out in the world. I was a bit nervous too because the songs are quite personal. I was making that quite obvious that they're about my relationships with my husband and my daughter and other people. And I was maybe revealing things that felt a little bit vulnerable and raw.
Many people often ask about the style of music. For me, that always means pigeonholing it, which isn't always justified. Every artist has different facets. So I would ask you to describe the new album as a whole, as a kind of landscape. What would it look like? What would we find there?
Oh, that's very interesting because even though the record is called Among the Evergreens, which makes you feel like the songs are situated in a forest, they're actually a lot of the record I did write while walking and being amongst trees. And some of the songs are set there. For example, The Wilds really feels like it's from that landscape. But then again, there's a real urban thread in some of the songs. For example, Cicadas was inspired by walking through a tunnel nearby my house. And there's another song, College Street, which is set in Toronto. So that's a really feels much more urban to me. But I think that's a hard question. Some of it feels, I can't think that the whole record is set in one place. And that's kind of why I divided it into this then and now and having each song be a chapter of where I've been and what the city I've been in. And yeah, I mean, I do feel like the cover of the album is an image of a woman walking with her dog with a guitar, walking through the forest with a huge moon behind her. And that is sort of me walking and thinking and reflecting. So I guess maybe you could say the record is set in this reflective place, which is the forest, and that all the songs are memories of me traveling in my mind to these other locations.
You said you divided the album in two parts, and then and now. But in my opinion, the first song on an album always has a special meaning. Why did you choose The Prize as the first song? He is also the first song of Then, the Then section. And maybe you could briefly tell us what's about.
Prize is a song I wrote for a friend of mine who I had known as a teenager. He was a few years older than I was and had grown up a kind of a violent home. And I didn't know that at the time. He just seemed like a big older brother who knew a lot more about the world. And we were kind of acting tough together and cool. And that was something that he really needed because to survive his childhood and the violence that I wasn't really aware of. For me, it was more of a pose and more of a gesture, like I'm going to act cool. We lost track of each other. Then he showed up at a show of mine years later. I didn't even recognize him until I started singing this song that was about growing up in Vancouver as, you know, being a teenager in Vancouver. And I locked eyes with him. in the audience. And I was like, oh my God, it's him. Now we're friends again. And we've changed a lot. He lived through a lot of ups and downs in his life, yet he's an extremely positive person, but out of choice. He could have chosen to be bitter and in this kind of negative space, but he's really like a lover of humanity. I think the song is a reflection on how we thought the best way to be was to have this tough exterior and not have anyone see who we were in our hearts. And I think at the time that made sense, but it stopped us from doing a lot of things. And it stopped us from being vulnerable with each other and with the world and being open. And it stopped us from experiencing a lot of things. So I think the song it travels through time because it starts with us being young. And then in the end, the last verse is like, we're older now and we're no longer tough. We now open our hearts and win the prize, because at the beginning, you're kind of like, I'm going to be tough. I'm going to be cool. And you think that's going to get you what you want. But in the end, it stops something from entering in you and you engaging in the world. So that's why I wanted to start the record with that, because it also was started at a time in my life where I was the youngest, in the song, I'm the youngest I am in all the songs. It's chronological too. But yeah, it's also an opening to the whole record. It's very sparse. It's kind of like chapter 1.
The first song in the now section is Mount Shasta. What significance does this Californian mountain have for you that you wrote a song about it? Perhaps you could tell us a few words about the content. Mount Shasta, it's about 4,100 meters.
Yeah, I don't know the exact height of it. It's a volcano. So it's got that classic mountain. It's not like, the Rockies those aren't volcanoes, but this has got that very classic peak at the top, snow on the cap. Mount Shasta, it's right when you go from Oregon into California, and it's beautiful. I took a trip with my husband. I was on tour and he came along with me. And you know how it is with long relationships. You start sometimes something sets off a fight. And so we had this fight basically for, I don't know, hundreds of miles. And we got from northern Oregon to California border, where in Mount Shasta, where we were staying. So it is basically a description of where we were and why it happened and the feelings I had. But yet it's this feeling also that your little disaster is so small in the face of this huge mountain. And the mountain is like a witness. And if you can stand in the place of the mountain, you can kind of see how small your conflict is, or the things that you're going through. I don't know if I thought so much about it. I was actually just literally describing what happened. But I do think that mountain has a significance for me because I have done many road trips, first with my parents and then with friends, and then as a musician, where you go through this mountain pass. It just feels like a part of my landscape. And maybe that's part of the story as well, is going along a road at many stages of your life, and you've changed and you grow, but you have this road that you keep going down. I mean, there are other songs that are evoking that same thing. Say College Street is about going down the same street. You've changed. The street is the same. So it helps you to reflect and figure out how you've changed, how you feel, what's different, what's the same, what do you want to change? How do we evolve as humans?
The last song on the album is The Wald. You also made a video. It includes old film footage. Why did you choose this song? Footage?
Archival footage. I have to tell you that we were going to make a video. I got my friend who's an artist, Christine Fellows. She made the video and I didn't really give her any guidance at all. She makes collage, stop motion animations. And I said, here's the song, make a video. I didn't give her I did maybe tell her the story of the song, which is a story about being a mother and watching your child grow and knowing they're going to fly away and that you are happy for them, but it's bittersweet. But she took the music and put these images to it that actually I found very powerful. It was another layer of meaning in the song, I guess, where she's got these archival films of men logging the forest, taking down these huge trees, and then basically industrialization. I'm singing these words of one day you will go and you're watching these big trees being milled into lumber. And it made me break into tears when I saw it at first, because it really felt like maybe this song could be a song about grief and about the world being destroyed by human beings logging and destroying nature. But, that wasn't my choice. It was her choice, but I really loved it. I don't know how she got into that. I said, this is so beautiful. And she said, it's what the song told me to do. I think she works very intuitively and kind of starts amassing images. Yeah, but it was really, it's very sad. The song isn't really sad. It's more wistful and nostalgic. But when you watch it with those images, it changes it. It just shows you how visual images mixed with music can make another layer of meaning.
You told us before about the trees on the cover of the CD. What do trees mean to you?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that it's changed. I think because I walk my dog, and I'm very fortunate to live near this Trans-Canada Trail where I'm walking through trees. Even though I live right in the city, I can walk to this trail and I feel like I'm in the wilderness. And yet with a bit of industrialization, because there's railroads and ships going in the harbor and bridges. So there's an awareness of the city, but you're flanked by these trees. And I think that because I moved back to Vancouver, I was living in Toronto for a long time. I think I was always drawn to trees because I would live near a park in Toronto, but just having that during COVID, that place to walk and to write and to contemplate and be with my dog, it's making me really see how much trees are a soothing presence and, giver of oxygen, the cleaner of air. I just read this book about, of course, how the trees talk to each other. I think this object, or to call it an object, this living thing, these living beings that are all around us that we don't really sometimes notice. You notice when they're gone, and you notice after you've walked through them how you feel. It's almost like a sacred space. I start to really feel like their aliveness, and I feel like they really helped me write these songs, just this walk through them. And now I'm fortunate, I get to be able to see the mountain, and the mountain has these little tiny trees on them. It looks tiny, but they're huge. But when you go close up, but these little triangles of trees, I guess. And then I moved into a place where I'm a little bit above the trees. I'm in a building that's tall, and I look out at the trees at the tops of them. And yet I miss seeing them right outside my window, and I miss the birds. So there's this feeling of communion. I need to go out and visit them when I can. So yeah, it feels, like
magic.
And then this feeling like I'm noticing them more and more and more and more.
What are your plans or projects for 2026? New album, tour?
Touring, a lot of touring. Yeah. I'm actually going to come to Germany, and I have 4 shows planned in May to come to Germany. I'm going to be in the Netherlands a little bit before that, going to the UK and some Canadian shows. A lot of touring, but I've been writing songs, so I don't usually schedule when I'm going to make a record or when I'm going to write. Sometimes I can go through long periods where I don't write at all, but I'm trying not to do that because I realize that it takes a long time to get then back into the writing zone. So I'm learning how to get into the mindset, or it's not even a mindset, it's almost like an emotional openness where I can write. In a day, I'll spend like a little bit of time and then I'll do other more mundane things or business stuff. Just being able to slip in and out of it. My friend who's a painter, she talks about how she started to do meditation because she wanted to have a short circuit into the zone where she could create. So I'm really trying to pick up my guitar if it's sitting there and I'm like, oh, I have a moment. Maybe I'll pick this up, because you just never know what's going to happen. Maybe you'll come up with something that you wouldn't have if you don't touch it. Yeah, I'm excited I'm kind of slow at writing, hoping to keep the writing happening while I'm doing these other things, touring and playing music.
We will see what comes next to you. The last question of our interview, Suzie. If the good fairy rang your doorbell and said, Suzie, you have 3 wishes for free, what would they be? Short answer, please.
Oh my goodness. This is like a trick. And then people would judge me. What are you talking about? I mean, when I was a kid, I used to think when I would wish something, it would be, which is something I probably copied from my sister because she's a little bit older and I would just copy her, wishing for world peace or something like that, which I actually think is probably the best thing. Wishing for the environment to stop being destroyed and that people will, work to preserve our home on planet Earth. World peace would be great. And then maybe the selfish wish is to never worry about how many people will come to the show and just that it will be what it will be.
I hope the good fairy listens to you. Suzie, it was a great pleasure to talk to you. I wish you all the best for you, your family, and your music. Stay healthy, and thank you that you were guest on my show.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks, Herms.